But I'm going to tell you this, we ain't done yet.
The Ineligibles podcast is back after a brief hiatus on the podcast end, but in real time, it's been about 2 weeks since we've been in the studio, so it feels good to be back. We each got a vacation in, both got to celebrate America's birthday. Chase, did you enjoy your vacation?
Yeah, we went to the beautiful hill country down in Fredericksburg. I got to see my grandma and grandpa for the first time in a year and a half. So that was
That's
nice.
awesome.
Last time I saw them was whenever I went to their house for the Advocare Texas Bowl a few years ago, or
Oh, man.
a year and a half ago. So it was nice to finally get to see them. We got together and my mom got cookies made up for like birthdays, Christmas, Thanksgiving, all of that. So like we celebrated a whole bunch of different occasions all in one.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was good time.
Good.
How about your trip?
Yeah, so we went down to the coast this past weekend to visit my father-in-law. He's been living down there for about a year now in Flower Bluff by Corpus Christi. So we got a little bit of beach time, got a little bit of pool time. I went to a movie for the first time in about 2 years. Saw 12 Mighty Orphans, which is a fantastic movie. If you're listening to this show, it means you care something about football. So I would definitely recommend you go watch that. It's about Texas high school football during the Great Depression and this team of orphans, and it's good stuff. So you should go watch it. But
That sounds like a oddly specific niche combination of two of my interests. I hadn't even heard of the movie, but I'm gonna have to go watch it.
oh no, man, it's right up your alley.
Yeah.
But yeah, we got to do that. Got to celebrate America. 2021 wonderful years of being a country.
I
didn't.
America's just the greatest country in the world. Some might call that xenophobia. That used to be called patriotism.
I mean, 2,000 years. It's like 4 times of the Roman Empire. So forget those guys. It's USA up in this hole.
Oh man.
Anyway, to get us back on track here, we're talking about a subject today that is near and dear to my heart, and that is the offensive line. Chase, I do want you to participate in this show as well, but I know that you know that the O line is my baby. And I've got a lot to say about it. So,
don't get me wrong. I'm gonna give you your time in the sun this show for sure. You've always been an O-line guy. You played O-line. You've taught me a lot about O-line over the course of our friendship. So I'm definitely gonna let you be the driver on this episode. But I do feel like I have a few things to contribute. So
yeah,
if not just to hear me laugh every now and then.
That's what I've got you here for.
There you go.
But yeah, so I was never very fast as a kid, and I had, I guess, average size. In Pee Wee they make you wear they put like a red X on your helmet if you were overweight, or if you were over a certain amount of weight. I never got that because I never looked like an O lineman. But I played O-line, from Pee Wee up through senior year of high school. Played O-line and D-line, but at one point or another, I played a game at center or guard or tackle. Pretty much all 5 spots. Like both guards, both tackles. So I've got a little bit of background there.
There you go. So yeah, I was 4'11", like 110 pounds soaking wet whenever I was in junior high. Up until junior high, I just played flag football. I was way too small to play Pee Wee football even back then. But I was just this tiny little wide receiver. I was super fast though. I mean, I could bench press the bar with like a 10-pound plate on either side. It was pretty tight.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
So I didn't spend a whole lot of time on the line, believe it or not.
Yeah.
But
No, and I played at a like before they changed it to from 2A through 6A. Back when 5A was the max, I played at Grosbeck. We were 3A, and I was I think I I touched 200 pounds briefly, but the rest of our offensive line was 240 and above. So, but hey, I held my own as a 3A offensive lineman. But
yeah, I
um,
didn't hit 200 pounds till like my junior year of college, and then I hit like 250 real quick. But
yeah,
now I'm back to
it just
200, so we're good.
yeah, it just compounds after a certain point. But
Yeah.
um, anyway, like at least on the defensive line, at least those guys get a little bit of glory. Especially if if you're making plays in the backfield, if you're getting sacks, like
Mhm.
at least people know their names. Like if
Yeah.
you're an O lineman, unless you're really really good or really really bad, like there's nobody that knows who the heck you are. Like
Yeah, that's a good
your
point.
your your average A&M fan probably couldn't tell you, the starting right guard for any given year. But
I would say the average football fan can't tell you the difference between a guard and a tackle. Um, I one of for me to remember the difference between a guard and a tackle came from me putting the rope out at practice when we would do, like 7-on-7 with just the defense. We'd put the rope out there that says, like all the positions on the O line.
yeah,
That was how I came to remember the difference. But but yeah, it's a very thankless position, but it's probably the most important position on the field, at least as it pertains to offense.
yeah. I mean, like if I think it's probably tied with quarterback. I mean, it's like a 1A and 1B type thing. Like you need both to be uh, a truly great team.
Hmm.
But like it is so important. And like if you've seen The Blind Side, in the first 2 minutes they explain to you just how important the position of left tackle is. It's the quarterback's blind side. You're keeping your quarterback upright and healthy, and hoping they don't tear their knees up and uh, have their careers ended, which is what happened at the beginning of that movie. Um, and left tackles get paid a lot of money in the NFL. Um, but yeah, so like basically my spiel real quick on offensive line is you don't have to look back very far to uh, see its importance. If you're lacking it, just look at the Super Bowl this past year. Uh, Pat Mahomes is the best quarterback of his generation. I mean, after he's done playing, he's got a lot of time left, but he may go down as one of the best ever. And the Chiefs were starting. I think they were down to like when they started the year. There was one guy that started on their first game at O line that was there in the Super Bowl. They lost both tackles, a starting guard. They had to move a bunch of guys around, and Mahomes was running for his life the entire game, and still playing tremendously. Like he made some incredible throws, but that Tampa Bay defensive line, Shaq Barrett, Jason Pierre-Paul, and Ndamukong Suh, they were just in Mahomes' face the entire night, and the Chiefs never really had a chance. And even in the game prior, when Tampa Bay played Green Bay, I think they sacked Aaron Rodgers like 5 times. And Green Bay typically has one of the best left tackles in the game in David Bakhtiari, but he was out for that game. I think he had been out for a few games, but uh, but he was also under pressure, And if Mahomes is upright in that game or like is not under pressure, I don't know if they win, but it's definitely more competitive. And without his starting O line, he just didn't have a chance. And on the flip side, if you go to the college games, uh, when Ohio State played Clemson, Clemson's offensive line was very suspect, and obviously like Ohio State was just torching Clemson's defense. But on when Clemson was on offense, Trevor Lawrence was under pressure all night, and eventually they just fell behind and couldn't keep up with the points that Ohio State was putting up. But then in the championship game, Alabama, who fielded one of the best by a lot of metrics, the best offense in college history last year, Also had the best offensive line that I think I've ever seen at the college level. They just didn't get beat. Like
Hmm.
Mac Jones had all day to sit back there and just throw up deep balls to Devontae Smith. And if you've seen Mac Jones play, he's not a very athletic guy, so they had to be good for him to succeed. But they
Well, and
absolutely were.
and I'll
Go
admit,
ahead.
like I thought maybe, and there was a time that I kind of felt like with the way that college football's going, you got a lot more mobile quarterbacks. You're spreading the ball a lot more. You got really good players at the skill positions. I'm kind of like, so long as you have good skill players and a good mobile quarterback, you could get by with a very average O line. I didn't really see the benefit of O line as much until you and I started talking a lot more. And I think I've definitely changed my mind to where now I think you could have average skill players and an average quarterback, but a fantastic O line, and you'll perform really well. A
Right.
really good O line could turn a decent running back to a great running back really easily, and I think we've
Yeah,
seen that
absolutely.
with Jimbo.
Yeah, and to I guess to like bring it back to A&M, go back to 2012, and Johnny wins the Heisman and this, that, and the other, and like Mike Evans, Ryan Swope, and things like that. But that offensive line had 3 first-round picks and 2 other NFL guys. I mean, I think I don't know if people know this or not, but when they vote on the team awards after the season, Johnny actually shared co-offensive MVP with Pat Lewis, the starting center,
Oh, really?
which
I don't
which
think I
just
knew
speaks to
that.
how good he was. Yeah, um, and he didn't even get drafted. But the other guys like Luke Jokel, Jake Matthews, these All American uh, first round offensive linemen, Cedric Ogbuehi, like without those guys, I know it seemed like Johnny was running for his life all the time just because that's the way he was. Like he just, he liked to be on the move, but he definitely benefited from having an elite O line, and I think we took
Yeah,
that for
I
granted. I
think
know,
that's what my misconception was, because my misconception was more of like Johnny made all that happen. But if I
right?
go back and look at the tape, I'm like, man, no, they allowed him to run around like he does, and then at that point
Yeah,
it becomes a scramble drill, and
yeah,
and it's so hard to defend the scramble drill. So you give your
yeah,
quarterback time, and all of a sudden, you know, you're very competitive, throwing the ball.
yeah. And I think I took it for granted as an A&M fan because we were so good on the line, and I just assumed that like it'd be an easy pitch to recruits, which
Hmm.
it probably should have been, but didn't turn out that way. Things kind of like after those guys filtered out and went on to the NFL, the O line definitely took a step back. Was pretty average most years, and even below average on a few of those years. But uh, I'll tell you what, as fun as last season was, my favorite thing of the entire year may have been the credit and the I guess like the visibility that the A&M offensive line got. I love the name the Maroon Goons. It's a holdover saying from the Sumlin era. I'm glad it's still around.
Hmm.
It's very fitting for for that group of players, and it's just a great name for an offensive line group in general. And I loved seeing, you know, Todd McShay was a sideline reporter for one of our games, and he's going on ESPN the next week saying A&M's got the best O line in college football. They're just mauling dudes up front. Kellen's never getting sacked, and it made me really happy to see those guys get a lot of recognition, and of course, just to see them play that way. Like
Yeah.
their play was outstanding. Kellen was sacked less than any quarterback in the country, and then on the other side, they were opening up big holes for Spiller and A-Chain and those other guys to hit some big runs. But
Yeah, I do like the
unfortunately,
name Maroon Goons, but I do feel like it was a missed opportunity to be the Maroon Five.
The Maroon 5, yeah. Well, I feel like there's probably some copyrights that may have prevented that.
Maybe so, but
Hey, with NIL, I'd buy a Maroon Goons T-shirt. That's easy money
yeah.
right there.
Oh, absolutely.
That's a topic for another day, for sure. But um, unfortunately, the bulk of the guys from last year's unit are gone. 4 of the 5 starters, but let's start with the one guy that does come back, who's probably the best one of the bunch, and in my opinion, is the best player on this team. It's close between him and Marv and
Yeah.
Anais and some other guys, but um, I've always been a big fan of Kenyon from when he was a recruit. Sorry, I should probably say his name, Kenyon Green. He's number 55. He played left guard last year. Was a first team All American. He's moving out to left tackle this year, where he will protect the blind side of either Haynes King or Zach Calzada. And so far, it looks like he's taken to it quite well. We'll see how he does in live reps against some of the best edge rushers in the country. But I think I mentioned on here before that on Twitter I follow quite a few NFL scouts, and just going off of their like their interest and who they talk about the most on the A&M team, it's easily Kenyon Green. They love the guy as a prospect and just like as a guard. Like he's only got guard film so far, but they think he's a surefire first rounder at guard. And who knows if he goes out there and is an All-American caliber tackle, he may even go further up the draft boards and work his way into the top 10 or maybe even top 5. You never know.
Yeah.
But
he is definitely a fantastic player. He's going to be a good player for us to use as a leader on that offensive line. We had such a veteran group last year that's going to be hard to replace, especially on the O-line, because they have to mesh well together. So it'll take some time for them to get back to that. But
yeah,
and I'm sure you'll get into this. I think when you look at just the ceiling for the players that are coming in compared to the ones going out, nothing against those guys. I mean, you just look at the ceilings, and you got to think that they're going to be a little bit higher on these guys. I think the guys that we had last year outplayed their expectations, which was
right.
just nothing but good things to say about them for that. But if we can maintain that same idea and do it with better players at the beginning, I mean, that's a really good position to be in. On the NIL thing, you had a great NIL quote about Kenyon Green needs to be sponsored by Aggieland Green. I agree with that wholeheartedly. That would be a pairing that needs to happen. College Station needs to see Aggieland Kenyon Green,
That's right. Shoot, I had a point in there and I lost my train of thought for a second.
Sorry, I'm good at throwing you off with those.
it's all good. But yeah, no, like Kenyon, he was a 5-star prospect coming out, and I'm sorry, this is what I was going to say. I feel like so far on this show we've just been we've been pretty positive, and rightfully so. Like there's a lot to be positive about, but just to put things in perspective, if we had a podcast a year ago, I don't think we would have been optimistic about the offensive line. At least I think we would have said it was a big question mark still.
Yeah,
and
one of the things we've talked about this before, you and I have, that I always feel like this time of year, and this could just be coincidental, but this time of year, every time I'm like, man, this is going to be the biggest question mark going into this year, it almost always ends up proving to be like one of our biggest strengths. And then at the same time, strengths that we say like, oh, this is going to be our strong point this year, a lot of times ends up being a big question mark right as the year goes into it,
right.
So like in some ways, I would say that our biggest strength on offense is the running backs, and our biggest question mark would be O-line. But just if history teaches me anything, it would be by the end of the year we might be saying the reverse of that. That the biggest strength coming out of the year was the O-line, and biggest question mark is running back because we might have early exits, we might have um, guys that don't pan out like we think they will. Hopefully, we don't have any injuries, but that's possible. It's part of the game. So
Right.
so that's what's happened before. I think it was either last year or the year before where running backs going into it was like our number one strength, and by the time, yeah, it was the year before last because by the time we got to the season, we only had one running back, and that was Isaiah Spiller. But
Yeah.
this time during that year, we had like seven, and we were like, oh man, Corbin's going to be great. Spiller is going to be a good backup to all these guys, and then they all kind of went different ways or got injured or whatever. So
Yeah.
hopefully that doesn't happen. But it just seems that a lot of times whenever we have big question marks, all of a sudden they prove us wrong. So I would have said O-line was one of my question marks last year, and look what they did. So hopefully we see the same
Yeah.
thing happen this year where it's a big question mark, but maybe by the end of the year it's one of our strengths.
Right. And like, I'm about to say something, but I don't want people to think that I think this O-line this year is going to be better than last year. But at this point, I'm more optimistic about this group right now than I was about last year's group at this time last year, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I just feel like I think you touched on it a bit in there, but I think the guys on this unit coming up have a lot higher, I guess, higher ceilings or more potential, especially when it comes to the draft. Like of the four guys that left, just one of them got drafted. And you can make the case, maybe a couple other ones should have been selected at least late, but Dan Moore went in the fourth round, and the other three guys had to go the free agent route. But the guys that we're fixing to talk about, like, they were not only ranked higher as recruits, but at least in the eyes of you and me, that they just seem like really, really solid prospects, and we think they're going to be really good. But to wrap up with Kenyon, man, he's just a superstar. Like he doesn't have the requisite, I'm doing air quotes here, but like the tackle height. Like he's not 6'6" or anything. He's 6'4", but he's got super long arms that allows him to play well on the edge. He's 325 pounds. He excelled as a guard last year, which typically tends to be a bigger body type, and maybe he'll play that in the NFL. That's what most people seem to think. But he's just so strong. He's so athletic. He's so balanced. He's smart. He knows who to block. When he's helping out elsewhere, he's keeping his eyes up. He's looking for a blitzer to come in, or like he executes everything extremely well. Like he's just a daggum good offensive lineman. I mean, there's not much more you can say about him, but he just plays so daggum physical. Like there's one draft analyst in particular I follow. His name's Ryan Roberts. He had a really good article about Kenyon, and I'm paraphrasing what he said. I forget one thing he said, but he said some people choose physicality and some choose finesse. He says Kenyon Green chooses pain, and he doled out a lot of pain last year, and I think we should expect the same this year.
Yeah, I'm excited to watch him.
I think we'll stick with the tackles and then move our way inside. But so we think, actually, I think we know that Kenyon will be manning the left tackle spot. At right tackle, this spring we had Blake Traynor getting most of the first team reps. He's a redshirt sophomore, 6'7", 330 pounds, good size. But I think who we'll see as the starter is the grad transfer from Tennessee, Jameer Johnson. I know we talked pre-show a bit about him, but in watching some of his tape, he switched out with with the other guy we thought may come here in Wanye Morris that ended up going to Oklahoma. But I think we may have gotten the better guy. In watching his games, he's really really good at pass blocking. Like people think of Tennessee, being in the East, maybe they don't play as good at teams, but they also play Alabama every year, and he played in that game, and like from what I watched, he didn't give up a sack. They have a really good edge rusher at Bama named Will Anderson, and Jameer Johnson handled him pretty well. And really, any game you watch in him, he's really good at pass protection. He's not a dominating run blocker, but I don't think he's bad either. I think he'll be an adequate run blocker.
Well, and sometimes it's a matter of pairing the talent with the scheme and the coach. It could very well be that he
Right.
didn't live up to his true potential there either because of whatever they might have been running or how he was coached. So
Yeah.
him having the experience as being a grad transfer will really help because he has, you're taking a guy who's been in college, who's learned the college route, who almost gets a second chance, if you will, as opposed to somebody who's a 17, 18-year-old kid coming out of high school that hasn't lived that life experience yet. So he's not having to learn that alongside it. I think he could come in and really hone whatever skills he already has. So that's
Right.
what you got to hope for with a grad transfer for sure. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, just watching him play, he seems to be a really good candidate for us. Somebody that's good, and us to take a scholarship and get a grad transfer and to choose him specifically, especially because we've already talked about what the transfer market looks like.
Right.
I'm sure there was plenty out there that we could have chosen from. So being that we went with him, there's got to be something to it that the coaches see even more so than we would ever see. So I am
Yeah.
optimistic about him. It's somewhat harder, in my opinion, which kind of sounds backwards. It's harder to take a player from another collegiate program and say, here's how good he's going to be here based on what he did
Right.
at this college program versus looking at a high school kid and saying, here's what he can be here. Just because
Right.
it's easier for you to look at what he did in college and say, this is what he's going to do no matter where he's at. Versus in high school, it's nothing but opportunity. You're like, look
Yeah.
at the talent that he has. Could we see him, really, really perform well in college? So I think what I'm trying to say is it's easier to be critical on a college transfer than it is to be on a high school incoming freshman, just because you're comparing the seemingly known to the unknown. And,
Right.
it's the same way this time every year. Everybody always wants to talk about the incoming guys because, maybe we saw this sophomore on our team not really do great last year. So we're like, okay, we need to replace him with an incoming freshman. Well, that incoming freshman might play a lot worse than he did his sophomore year. And come his junior year, he's going to perform a lot better than this incoming freshman would. So it's harder to
Right.
tell because it's easier to be critical on him, I think.
Yeah, I think there's something to that, and it's unfortunate that he couldn't be here in the spring. Like we couldn't get a look at him, in the spring game and take anything from that. But I mean, I think this is going to be his sixth year playing college football, so I mean, he's got a ton of experience. I mean, he's a seasoned veteran at this point. He played, I don't know, 15 or so games. I think he started that many games at Tennessee. At one point, I just thought of here on the spot. He started at left tackle for Tennessee last year, which typically has to go against the best edge rusher on the opposing team. But A&M has that spot locked up, so
Yeah.
we think he'll be on the right side, which theoretically he'd be going against the opposing team's second best edge rusher, most of the time. But that's just uh, it's just one more factor in there to see how he's going to do. But and he's not he's not crowned the starter right now. Like he's going to have to come in here and compete and lift and all that stuff. But I think his primary competition is probably Blake Trainer, who we talked about briefly.
Mhm.
A few other tackles. I guess let's talk about some younger guys that are coming up. Um, the one that stands out, well, I don't know if I can say that because there's a couple of them that stand out, but uh, maybe the highest rated of the bunch at tackle was a guy named Ruben Fothery or Deuce Fothery, a super high ceiling guy. He's 6'8", 315 pounds, incredibly long arms, still very light on his feet at that size. I think people see the bigger an offensive lineman, the better, and that's not always the case. Like you can be 6'10" but have lead feet and be a terrible offensive lineman. But
Yeah, I remember there was one year where Arkansas had like the biggest, like they were all like 6'10", and like
yeah,
all of them were like 350 pounds. And every time you would watch them play, they would always be talking about like this line is weighs more than 7 elephants, or like it would just be some ridiculous like graphic that ESPN would throw out there, and then they lost
yeah,
like all of their games. So like
yeah,
size isn't always everything, when it comes to that. So
yeah. But yeah, on Fothery, it is rare to see someone of his height that's still able to move, but he definitely can. He was a standout basketball player as well. Which on that note, he's never really been committed to just football and lifting weights and eating and and filling out and getting stronger. So uh, I think the ceiling is extremely high for him. I don't think he'll, unless uh, we're blowing somebody out. I wouldn't expect him to see too much action, but in those games, that'd be great for him to get in there against a Kent State or a Prairie View and get some reps and get some time in a live game against someone that's not DeMarvin Leal that he has to block
yeah.
in practice every day. um, the other guy who I'm very excited about, and we brought him up a little bit in our Q&A on the subject of international players, but that's Jordan Moko from the land down under in Australia. Um, I think physically I think he's as gifted as anyone on the A&M roster on the offensive line. That is,
Yeah.
I don't think he's going to be a plug and play All American player out the gate. I think he's only played 2 years of football, I believe, and that was in another country where he may not have gotten like the elite coaching that he's hopefully going to get here. But from a physical standpoint, I think he's 6'5", 330 pounds. He's built like a brick. You know what? Extremely athletic, and just if he can get down the football part, then like he's got the physical part set. Like he's set in that regard. But if he figures football out in the next few years, he's going to be a really, really good player.
Well, I think that's what makes his story fun to follow. Like it's going to be a really fun one to follow to see like how does it, will he be able to pick it up right away and contribute right away? That would be really cool. Or is it one that we don't see him hit the field for another 2 or 3 years? And either way, like it'll be fun to follow. But I could see him, depending on how quickly he picks it up. Like he is a monster athlete. I mean, he's definitely got the strength and the
He's got the goods.
yeah. I mean, he's tough. So I'm excited to see him play because he can definitely become a mauler. Um, I'm just curious how long it'll take for that to happen.
Yeah, it's definitely a cool story, and I know I know Aggie fans like hearing that stuff. That I'm sure it'll get brought up on ESPN if he's ever a starter. But
No doubt.
the Ineligibles podcast is letting you know right now that there's a dude from Australia, and he may be.
ESPN is going to beat that drum every time he hits the field as a starter. Here's this guy from Australia. But
Yeah, no, and I'd be remiss if I didn't mention this, but because my wife loves this part because I showed her the video when he committed, but like he was on television down there, like he's a celebrity in Brisbane, but he was on TV, doing his announcement ceremony, and he's got these 3 helmets on the table, and he's like, I'm committing to Texas A&M. And he picks up the A&M helmet and tries to put it on, and it's just not going to fit over his head. he's got a dome, but it got to where it was on enough where it wouldn't fall off. So he just it was just stuck on his head, and he just left it there, and it's just like getting hype and stuff. But
that's on Montana.
Video.
Montana, you should have sent him a correctly sized helmet. That's on you. Actually, no, we'll blame that one on Goose.
Yeah. All right, it's been a while for me. Are helmets like large, extra large, double XL, or do they go by like different sizes?
Yeah, they do go by different sizes. Or they go by the medium, large, XL.
Okay.
So yeah, they
it's not like 7 3/4.
Right. I don't know. There might be something to that on some of the specialty helmets I don't know about. But for the majority of the helmets I ever dealt with, no, they were all, had certain sizes. But then, of course, they have like air in them. The pads are all air, so we would fit them to their head and then fill the air correctly, to where it wouldn't move around.
Right. But yeah, and the same thing with Moko as with Fathery. Like, you hope that you get up big on some opponents this fall and get him some action. Like he's never played in a college football game before, so even if it is a lesser opponent, just getting those live reps and getting that experience, I think it's going to be a big deal. And next year, it's going to be interesting to see, if either of those guys step up. Really quick before we go on to the interior guys on the O-line. There's a few more young tackles. Trey Zune is a true freshman from Fort Collins, Colorado. 6'6", 310 pounds. I think he was born in College Station. I think both his parents are Aggies, but he's an interesting prospect. And now that I think of it, I think I may link this tweet into the show notes of this episode. But he posted a video on Twitter about a year ago. He's got like a trainer that he works with, and his trainer is absolutely electric. He uses some language that I won't
really?
I won't use it on this podcast, but I will link to that so you can go enjoy that for yourself. But it's fun to watch. He's a wild man. But I think he I don't think Colorado played a season, and then he got here in the spring, but he also tore his ACL about a year ago. So hopefully he gets back from that and is able to go through fall camp and go through some workouts and just compete and get some experience. And then the last guy we're going to talk about as a tackle, at least I think this guy's a tackle, Derek Hunter. He moved over from the defensive line this past spring. He came in as a defensive tackle, but they switched him to O-line. They felt good about their depth at defensive tackle, so he was taking some reps at right tackle back in the spring. He's 6'4", 300 pounds. I think he's still got with the COVID stuff. It always confuses me. I'm pretty sure that he's still got 4 years to play, so he can sit behind these older guys like Kenyon and like Jameer Johnson, and just keep working on making that adjustment to the offensive side of the ball. And who knows, you may look up next year and maybe he's one of your starting tackles.
Well, that's I always like to follow those storylines, guys that change positions and really change the complete opposite side of the ball. It's always exciting for me to follow because it's just that really shows team playership. Like they're really obviously, like, they want to be successful and they're going to play whatever position
Yeah.
they think they can be successful on. But it's more of like, like your team obviously trusts you to make that switch over. So yeah, I'm excited to follow his story for sure.
Yeah. Moving on, we're going to switch it over to the interior O line. We're going to talk about the guards first. And we're going to do something that we've been meaning to do on these player breakdowns, or these position breakdowns rather. That's breakout players, and I'm going to talk about mine real quick.
Mm-hmm.
My breakout player is Akinola Ogumbi. He is
Dang
a
it, that's what I was gonna
redshirt.
say.
You still can. You can still take him.
Yeah, my breakout player is also. I'm excited to see Aki. Go ahead.
But yeah, man, Akinola, he's a redshirt freshman. I should have clipped that. I need to get that one in here. He's a bad boy, but
He is a bad boy.
I think he wears number 73. No, he's 74. But he's from Fort Bend Kempner. Big dude. Looks like a guard. He played in a wing T offense in high school, so all of his highlight tape is just him driving other dudes into the dirt, and it's very, very fun to watch. But for a guy that didn't or that wasn't asked to pass block a lot in high school, he's a pretty good pass blocker, at least from what we've seen so far, and that's just in limited action last year and in the spring game, but. In the spring game, I was super impressed with him. He's still got the size. He's actually trimmed up a little bit and gotten in really good shape. He's very quick on his feet, and he's my breakout player for a reason. I think he's going to be a big piece of this A&M line. He may be the second best guy on the whole unit, but I'm really pumped to see him this year.
I've followed him for years on like Twitter and Instagram and stuff. Just because he's always been a pretty fun person to follow, but he just always seems like he's always working on something, and he's always posting, videos of him working out with Footwork King or whoever it may be, and just doing stuff. It seems like it's football all the time. Maybe not all the time, but like we've talked about that before on episodes where like there's some guys that just they have a constant focus, and he seems like he might be one of those. But he will be a good player. I think he's one that we will see be a phenomenal player by the end of his career. He's just somebody that I'm excited to watch. I've been excited to watch since probably his junior year of high school.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of good options at guard on this team, but I'd be shocked if he doesn't start. I think he's that good. I think he's set to have a really, really good year, and I think he'll be a mainstay for the next couple of years. And a quick note on him in the spring game, like there was a bunch of injuries on the O line, and I think they only had like 6 scholarship offensive linemen available. So. I think both him and Layden Robinson both played some right tackle. And we're going to talk about Layden here next, but I think Layden's probably a better fit at guard. He doesn't quite have the quick feet that Aki has. But Aki, I think if they needed him to next year, I think he could play right tackle. I think he's athletic enough, he's smart enough that he could excel at tackle in college, but for the time being, I think he's going to be an excellent guard. But I think he'll start at left guard next to Kenyon Green. On the right side is who we expect to start, and is going to have to battle to keep some other guys from taking his spot. But is Layden Robinson, aka War Daddy. as he was termed by Cole Kublik of the SEC Network.
Poor daddy.
If
I
you
had
don't get
forgotten
that
about him
joke
saying that.
in the South Carolina game last year, I think we were up like 41-3 or something, and they put the backups in, and they put Layden in, and Layden, if you listen to like Texas radio and people like that, I think he was giving Jared Hocker a good run for his money to start at right guard last year, but they ended up keeping Hocker, and Jared Hocker had a great year, and he's gone now, but we've got War Daddy stepping in, and he stepped in that South Carolina game and was just destroying dudes, just putting people on their back, just disrespecting the South Carolina defenders. And Cole Kubelek, he watches film of the SEC lines every Sunday, and he tweeted out, like, with no context, like no video. He goes, "A&M unveiled an absolute War Daddy last night," and I think he followed that up with a few videos of Layden. But man,
Yeah.
this dude, I've been excited about him for a long time. He's from Manville. He's a redshirt sophomore. He's a third-year guy, built like a tank. There's no one in college football that's going to push this dude back. You may be able to get around him, with quickness, but when it comes to power, this dude's got it. He's gonna anchor down, and he's not giving up any ground when it comes to that.
Yeah, I've said on here before that Ryan Broniger from Texags is one of my absolute favorite analysts, I guess, in terms of evaluators. Thank you. And he always just has some of these guys that, like, you don't, like, if you listen to everything that Texags puts out, like, you'll hear him beat the drum of these guys that if you go and look at like 247, they're like a 3-star. He jumps out as being one. I remember Ryan just being all about him back in high school. And so those guys, anytime there's somebody like that, like, it gets me all excited to see them, because I'm like, okay, if Bronny's saying this, then this guy's probably really good. And sure enough, like, he's the tape that he's put out there, he's shown that he's really good. So I have a lot of faith in him coming into this season, because I think it was last year was just one of those things where if he needed to start, he could have started and he would have done really, really good. But we didn't need him to start at that moment in time. So, you're going to go with your senior who's been there, with the same guys for years. And I think the drop off at his position from who'd you say it was, at Hawker that beat him out last year?
Yeah, Hawker.
So, like, from Hawker to him, like, I don't think you're going to see much of a drop off there, as you might on some of these newer players.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And as far as like his high school tape and his recruiting ranking and all that, and Broniger beating the drum for him. I try not to be that guy that complains about the rankings. I'm not a recruiting analyst. I trust those guys to make their judgments and put people where they need to be. But with Layden, I remember the summer before his senior year, he went to all the camps, which is a big factor in those rankings. If you go to our camp and you do well, we'll bump you up. But he went to every camp that they held and dominated everyone he faced. Like, he won the MVP at every camp. He dominated much higher rated players. And then I think he started at left tackle on a pretty good Manville team. But he definitely stands out as a guy who finished up as a 3-star that, at least in my opinion, I thought he should have been a lot higher. And I think we'll see that on the field this fall. He's listed at 6'4", 330. He might get Stan to trim up a little bit and get some of that quickness back. But I think I think when in the run game, and I think this too. Like we talked about Jameer Johnson, and he may not be the most devastating run blocker, but you put him next to a guy like Layden, who is an excellent run blocker, and you pair those two together and let them combo block and work double teams and stuff like that. I think that's a recipe for success. I think that'll really help out Jameer with his run blocking. But yeah, I'm super excited about him, and I'm super excited, and I think all Aggie fans are about the next guy we're going to touch on, and that is he's kind of as an offensive lineman, he's got to be the most talked about one coming in to A&M that I remember. At least he gets the most publicity, but it's Bryce Foster, a true freshman from Katy Taylor. If you don't know who Bryce Foster is, in the 10 years that I've been, following recruiting and watching high school tape, he's got the best film at offensive guard that I have ever watched. He's just incredibly strong, incredibly powerful. He won state in the shot put this past year, and his film is just him absolutely kicking ass all over 6A. Like it's fun to watch. He is a hell of an offensive line prospect.
Yeah, he's got a really good tape. He's just a very, very put together athlete in a lot of ways. He's one that I know will be a phenomenal player one day, if not right away.
Yeah.
He's I don't know. You just look at him and you can see what we're talking about. He's just a really good athlete. I don't know what else to say about it.
He's got calves the size of watermelons.
Yeah, he's just built like a tree trunk. He's just stout.
I think I referred to Moko is built like a brick, but it also applies to Bryce Foster.
It does. Yes, it does.
He's absolutely built that way, and very, very low bust potential, like you said. I'd be shocked if he's not a tremendous player at some point during his time at A&M. And it's kind of a log jam on the interior. You have these two great young players in Akinola and Layden Robinson, and like I know you don't want a true freshman to start on the offensive line, especially in this league. But if there ever was one that could do it, it'd be Bryce Foster. And like I know we heaped a ton of praise on Kenyon Green to start the show, and rightfully so. I think Kenyon's phenomenal. But he started as a true freshman, and he took some lumps in the SEC. He wasn't an All-American right away, but he'd also played tackle most of his life, and then had to make the transition to guard with no spring practice. At least with Bryce, I think he's probably physically ready. Like I think he's up to 330 pounds. But he's built solid. Like he's not. There's no like gut on him. He's just. I don't want to keep making the comparison to brick outhouses, but he's just a tank. And if anyone could do it as a true freshman, it would be him. But
I was literally about to say, you made the comparison to Kenyon Green. I was going to say, like of anybody on the list that I would say would be the next Kenyon Green, it would be him.
Yeah. And he played a little bit of center. He did play some center his senior year. I don't think he'll start out there. I'll expect he'll start at guard, or he'll start out at guard and probably be second team. But maybe down the road, maybe next year, if they, it's good to have options. Like I feel like in the past, we've been
definitely.
We've been paper thin as far as depth goes on the O line. Now you're like, oh, if a guy goes down, you feel pretty good about your backup prospects, and and especially for the future, if you want to move Aki out to tackle and bring in Foster at guard, that's still a pretty salty lineup. So there's
Well, and
definitely
that's where
options.
you want that depth on the O line even
Exactly.
more so than you want at other places, because like that's where injuries are more likely to happen. Even, and I'm not even talking
Yeah.
about like career-ending injuries. I'm talking about just like little, like you tweak your leg in the wrong way and you're out for a game.
Right.
That's more likely to happen in the trenches than it will, running a route. So
Yeah. Well, he's an awesome prospect. We've got some good depth at tackle and at guard. I'll mention briefly Grayson Reed. I think this would be his sixth year. I'm not even sure if he's on the team. If you remember the Alabama game, he's the one that got carted off. I think he was on the field goal unit. I think he got rolled up on and hurt his leg. So he had a really like he was a really solid looking prospect. And I remember at the spring game in 2018, I was like, man, like Grayson Reed looks really good. Like there's no way he's not going to start. And then he just kind of battled injuries and he was never able to reach that potential. But if he is still on the team and he is healthy, that's just one more guy that you have for depth. If you want to, if he's still healthy enough to come back to the team and go through practice, it's good to have that experience and it's just even more depth that you could have there.
yeah.
And I think the last guard we'll talk about is Josh Bankhead. He's a redshirt freshman, second year guy from the Woodlands. He was definitely a lesser, I guess, a lesser rated prospect, but he's a little bit like Layden, where he's a really strong dude, and he didn't get a ton of recruiting hype, but I'll tell you this: in the spring game, like he was one of the few healthy O linemen that we had, and he looked pretty dang good. He was on the second team offense, so he had to go against the first teamers on defense, and he had to go against McKinley Jackson, who we'll talk about when we get to the D line. But McKinley Jackson is a stud defensive tackle, and Josh Bankhead more than held his own. I mean, he got beat a time or two here and there, but he held up really well all day. And I know we keep harping on it, but there's a lot of good options here. I think you have to feel pretty good about the guys that we have, in the pipeline, and it looks good for the foreseeable future. But we're going to wrap it up here with center and this position, and I think particularly this player that we're going to start with. He may be the most pivotal player of the season, like on the team, because if he's healthy and he's good, it's going to make a world of difference. And that is Luke Matthews, the fourth brother. I know he's the last one, but
Yeah,
he's
I think he's the fourth.
Yeah, but he's the younger brother of Jake Matthews, who you all know, and Mike Matthews, who started at center back in the Sumlin days. But he hasn't been able to stay healthy the past few years. He's another guy that was kind of battling out with the entrenched starter last fall, but hurt his shoulder and wasn't able to come back from that last year. But it appears that he's healthy, and he really needs to be, because I think he's like you just can't have a bad center. And I'm not sure like if the person that would take his place would be bad, but like I feel like this team really needs him to stay healthy and to step up and take on a big role.
Well, and I'm excited to see him, mainly because, I mean, the Matthews clan has always been, just, I mean, they're just, they're all just fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
They have they're just a family of just, I mean, they're like the Mannings, but
Yeah.
but on the offensive line. But
Yeah.
I remember Mike told me once upon a time, I think we offered him whenever he was in like sixth grade or something stupid. Like it was. I don't remember how young he would have been back then, but
Yeah.
I remember Mike telling me like he's like he's going to be the best out of all of us. And so of course he's the little brother, but everybody always said that he was going to be the best one, coming up, and so
Yeah.
of course that could have changed. I don't know, but um, I like to think that it hasn't, So
Right.
maybe the only reason why we haven't seen him be an absolute superstar is because of some of the injuries. And if he can
Yeah.
stay healthy, like I would love to see him really excel because um, I love that family. They're really good people, and they mean a lot to Texas A&M too.
Yeah. No, it'd be great to see. I mean, he's in his fourth year, so he's been in the program for a long time. He's strong enough. He's a Matthews, so he's obviously smart enough, um, and he's going to have every opportunity to start and be the guy at center. But it's just something to watch for. When we get into fall camp and and we see who's out there. Is Luke practicing? Is he healthy? Is his shoulder okay? And just things like that. So um, fingers crossed there from uh, the very little that we know about the team, like from a
Yeah, right.
from a source standpoint. It sounds like he's healthy, as far as we know. So it's something that we'll keep an eye on, when fall camp rolls around. But um, it's a very important piece of the puzzle on the offensive line. Um, for other prospects at center on the roster, um, it kind of surprised me the guy they put there in the spring, true freshman Matthew Wyckoff. Uh, like I said, true freshman came in the spring, and he's 6'6", so I think I just assumed that he would be a tackle.